it isn't physical at all. It's a shared mathematical dream. The only difference is that in a personal dream, you are the only mind generating it. But in the shared dream that we call the holos, every mind in existence is contributing to its generation. You aren't your body at all. Your body is just an avatar. It's a vehicle that lets you interact with and explore this shared dream world. And this shared dream, it doesn't change erratically like the personal dream, because every mind contributes to its formation. So this ensures that it's stable. Mathematics, dreams, and mind is the key to everything. They're all related. Mathematical frequencies, sine and cosine waves, are mind. And these non-physical frequencies of mind are what generate dream worlds. Your body, it's just a dream avatar. And what you truly are is an eternal, non-physical, mathematical mind called a monad. Now, some people have called this a soul, but we often use monad in order to distance ourselves away from the way mainstream religion has soiled the term. A monad, or a soul, has nothing to do with faith, belief, or mysticism. It can be known completely logically and rationally. A monad is simply a container of mathematical frequencies, a complete set of Fourier basis waves. And this is what you truly are. A cat doesn't know that it's a cat. A human thinks it knows that it's a human, but it's mistaken. A human is actually an eternal monadic mind. But this is just the beginning, because it goes so much deeper. Now, if this begins to feel overwhelming, hey, I get it, I understand. This is because we are beginning to venture beyond the limits of self-awareness, and so it can feel disorienting, like being submerged in a chaotic ocean and not being able to get your bearings because you can't tell which direction is up and which direction is down. But just stay with me, and by the end of this video, you'll be at the gate of a new consciousness. Reality, it's not physical. It's a mathematical realm of mind, and you are not a body. You are a monadic, eternal mind. But there's another layer to this mystery, and that is what the philosopher Hegel called the absolute. Hegel knew that reality wasn't material, that it was a reality of rational thought, an evolving mind trying to understand itself. And he also knew that reality was composed of concepts that seem contradictory and paradoxical, but are actually united. Understanding the apparent paradox of the one and the many is crucial to reaching the next level of consciousness. So what do I mean by the one and the many? Reality is one mind. It is one soul, but at the same time, it is many minds. It is many souls. So you might be thinking, how can it be possible? How can it be both at once? How can something be one and many at the same time? Think of it like this. You are one eternal monadic mind, and so is everyone around you. Your friends, family, they're all avatars, vehicles that an eternal monadic mind, a soul, links to in order to interact in the shared dream. So there are many monadic minds in existence. However, now imagine the collection of all eternal minds. Considered together, there is one collective mind, one network mind. Think of many cells that form one body, or many neurons that form one brain. There are many individual minds, but they form one collective mind, the Absolute. The Absolute is a collective mind, a network of many minds. So when you go to sleep and dream at night, that's your personal dream world as an individual monadic mind. The world you inhabit when you're awake, that's the dream of the Absolute, the collective mind. All of us. The Big Bang was the moment that the Absolute began to dream this collective dream. The Absolute is God. We often call the Absolute Abraxas. Now, the Absolute, it isn't something apart from us. It is what we are. We are the Absolute. We are God. Now, just as an animal doesn't know that it's an animal, a human thinks that it's merely human. but it's something so much more. It is an eternal monadic mind, and together we are the absolute, God itself. Now we need to put all these concepts together into our triadic perspective: the avatar, the monadic, and the absolute perspective. The avatar perspective is simply you as a body. The monadic perspective is you as an individual eternal monadic mind. And the absolute perspective is us together as the one cosmic mind. The absolute, or Abraxas, is the network of many monadic minds considered as one. And rationally understanding these three perspectives is the key to everything. From the monadic perspective, we understand that we are eternal individual minds, souls. And from the absolute perspective, we understand that we form one mind. From that perspective, you are me, and I am you. You see, the next level of awareness, the level after simple self-awareness, it's a group awareness, a group consciousness. And Hegel knew this was true. He called this group consciousness absolute spirit. Right now, the people of Earth have only simple self-awareness. They're only aware of themselves as mere bodies, avatars. They aren't aware that they're eternal minds, and they aren't aware that they form one system, the absolute. They're like neurons in a brain that, instead of working together, are fighting amongst themselves. It's only when the neurons work together that the brain is healthy. Likewise, only when humanity attains absolute awareness and realizes that it forms one mind will it be able to become what it is. All the hatred, war, and division will end when humanity finally realizes that we are many minds that form a collective. From the absolute perspective, I am you and you are me. If we use a circle to symbolically represent a monad, a circle of circles would represent the absolute. We are both one and many. The absolute is the one mind that experiences particularity through a multitude of individual monadic minds that each link to an avatar to experience space and time. The absolute is the ultimate universal that experiences particularity through monads that then localize space and time through bodily avatars. We are all on a journey of evolution and apotheosis. We are literally evolving into God. This world is a training ground for us to learn and cooperate and work together. And eventually, when we have all attained absolute consciousness and are working together in harmony, we will be able to create our own collective dream worlds together. Together we will be the gods of the new world. Now, does this idea seem crazy, that we could create our own dream worlds?
And all these
unimaginable, impossible?
It's
not
started to happen.
In fact, it's
so
obvious.
I became disillusioned.
Look, instinctual animals couldn't possibly fathom how self-aware humans could create cities, cars, and
since
smartphones.
2005.
Likewise, self-aware humans cannot possibly fathom how we will be able to create a dream world. Most animals can't recognize themselves in a mirror. A human that has simple self-awareness can recognize themselves in a mirror. A human of a higher awareness can recognize themselves in everyone else. Every person becomes their mirror.
And so I questioned
Once you step into that higher awareness, it will seem like the most obvious thing in the world, and you'll be frustrated that others can't see it. It's as frustrating as being the only self-aware human within a world of instinctual animals. Right now, we can barely walk outside without the fear of someone saying something hateful or attacking us because of the way we look, act, or dress. Humanity is extremely fractured, and we must work together to repair this fracture and unite the world. We want to finally be free to begin thriving in a beautiful world of our creation, rather than fighting to survive in this madhouse. We must reach a higher consciousness as a collective, or this world will be destroyed. The biggest obstacles to humanity reaching a new level of consciousness are mainstream religion, scientific materialism, and the rich billionaire class. You see, mainstream religion keeps humanity enslaved to a fabricated God in the sky.
That's great.
And as long as humanity worships a God in the sky, they will
smaller
never
scale.
realize their own
I'm a little bit
divinity.
like you. I grew up a
Scientific
devout
materialism refuses
Catholic,
to
and
acknowledge
then
that this
I
is a
started looking
mathematical
outside
reality
because
and clings to
what
a
really
dogmatic
triggered me was the
faith
fact
in
that I
human
would ask
senses.
questions in
Scientific
parochial school,
materialism
and
is a
it was
primitive
always the
system
same
that
answer.
reduces
Well,
you
that's
and
the
all
way
existence
gut one,
to
and
nothing
almost
but
as if
dead
you
matter.
are not allowed to ask questions
It must be
outside of
replaced
the
by our system
shit
of
there we say the
ontological
curriculum that's
mathematics, a
presented
system
to us.
of logic and
But
reason
recently you
that
told me
proves
that
that this is a
you were going to
mathematical
do a
reality of
presentation,
mind,
and
and
by
that
now
we
you probably
are
have
God.
already
The
done that
billionaire
presentation.
class is
You
intent
said
on
it was going to
hoarding
be
their
a
wealth,
big one.
while the rest of the
I'm
world
here
suffers because of their greed.
with a lot of
The last thing
expectation.
that they want is for
Tell
you
us
to
what
realize
happened. Tell us
what
exactly
you are.
what
They
you're
want
trying to
you to
convey.
remain an ignorant
That's
slave,
huge.
a cog in their corporate
Okay,
machine.
I just
Only
sent you a
once
link
faith
there
and
to
the abhorrent
that.
concept
The
of a creator
presentation
God
is
is demolished.
online
Only once
already.
scientific
I did this
materialism is
presentation on Sunday, the
replaced
4th
by the
of September,
rationalist
and it's
system of
online.
ontological
You have a link,
mathematics,
and
only once
you
the
can
billionaire
share that
class
with
is
others.
God can we become free
If
to
people want
create
to go
a
and see
new
this
world
presentation,
and become
it's
the
called
gods of a new
Reclaiming
world.
Dominion.
The answer is not love and
Reclaiming
light.
Dominion,
The
part
billionaire
1, and
class
you
will
can see
stomp all
part
over
2.
you. The answer is
In
not
there, I
faith
have
and
explained,
prayer. God is
I'm
not
busting the
outside of
fictions
you.
of law,
He is
religion,
you.
and
The
science.
answer is
These are
not
the three big ones.
materialism.
Okay?
Only
Now,
logic and reason can reach
what
the
I've already
highest levels
exposed
of
in my
mind beyond the
videos,
physical.
Mel, is the fact
Together,
that Rome
we must
still
change the world,
rules
and it
this
begins with
world.
you. You
Rome is
personally must step
behind
into
everything.
this new level of
And I've
consciousness and then
exposed
help
these
others to
facts.
do
Now,
so as well
when you-
by spreading
Are
this
you referring to
information.
the Vatican
Now, I've
per se?
told you that if you watch this
The
video
Vatican and the
to the
Roman
end,
cult,
you will
which
have
was
begun to
founded
step
by the
into a
Julian
new
dynasty.
level of awareness.
You see,
And if
Rome
you
was a
understood
republic once
anything
for
at all in
500
this
years.
video, then
And
you
there was
have.
relative peace.
Hegel knew that to be
Relative
aware
peace.
of
There
your
were a few wars, the
limitations is
Punic
to already
Wars,
be
Carthage,
beyond
and
them.
all of that.
So simply
But,
by becoming
in the
aware
main,
that there
Rome
is
was
something more
a
than
country that
self-awareness,
was,
you have already
a
begun to
city-state
enter
and a
into a
country that
higher
was,
understanding, even if
founded
it's
on,
just a little.
on a republic
We
and
are a movement
law.
of eternal monadic
Then all of a
minds,
sudden
and the
came
highest
this
of us have
family
attained a level of consciousness
from
well
nowhere,
beyond
the Julian
self-awareness.
family.
We are
And Julius
creating a
Caesar
new,
and his
higher
adopted
community
nephew
here on
Augustus
Earth
is when
now.
all the damage
And we are
really
here to
began.
transform humanity, transform the
They
world, and
created
transform
a lot
the
of these
universe.
fictions
Join us.
that we still,
Leave
that are still
behind the
here today. For
mundane
instance,
and step into something
big one.
higher. Become
we
Hyperion.
all know about the
Now, I attempted to
Julio
communicate a
Gregorian
vast
calendar.
amount of information
Now,
in a
the
very
whole
small amount of
world
time, and even
subscribes
this is
to
a
this
long time
calendar,
for the attention
is
spans of
subjected to
social
it.
media. Now, I'm
We,
sure you have many questions
set
like,
all our clocks
is
to this
reincarnation
calendar.
true? How can we know
So
all of this
Rome,
through logic and reason? And what happens when you die?
still dominates
I've
us
created videos on all these
by
topics
means of
and a
this,
lot more, so
slave
start
system,
exploring my
this
other
calendar
videos. The more
that,
you
Julius
rationally
Caesar
understand,
and
the
Augustus
more your awareness will
implemented
increase.
in Rome.
If you made it this
The
far,
other thing
make
which
sure you
we
like and
have
share this
around the
video.
world is
Share
the
it with
Latin
everyone
language.
so we can
In
begin
one
to
form or
wake
another,
up the
the
world.
Latin
Now, I
language
want to give a big shout out to all
dominates
my
the
supporters
planet.
on Patreon
English
helping us
uses
wake up
it,
the world. And if you'd
Italian,
like to
French,
support as
Spanish,
well, support on
Portuguese,
Patreon and get access
German,
to our
Dutch.
weekly
These
secret
are
live
big,
streams.
big
My name is
languages.
Morn,
They are
and I
all
am
in the top
Hyperion,
12
ad
languages,
astra,
the ones
to
I've
the
just mentioned,
stars.
and they are Latin. Law, the law in the Western world, all operates under canon law, and canon law is the Vatican. It's commercial law, law of the high seas. So when you go to court and you're dealing with a magistrate, he's dressed in black, usually. Your judges are dressed in black because they are administering canon law, and which comes from Rome, and it's the Church of Saturn. Saturn is the color black, and therefore it's Saturn is also Latin. And I'll go into that in a minute.
Sounds like Satan.
Yeah, it is. It is. Saturn is Satan. That's who it is. It's and I've exposed this in my videos because you see, Saturn and the Sun have a very, very powerful relationship. Saturn takes 29.5 years to orbit I won't say orbit around the sun because that's false. It orbits with the sun. And that also I will explain in the science part of this interview, because the science of our solar system is wrong, that the science that we learn in our universities. Now, its relationship to the sun is very similar to the moon with the earth. The moon also has a 29.5 day orbit. That's the synodic moon cycle, the 4 phases of the moon. These take 29.5 days. So we know that the moon has a very powerful influence on this planet, the Earth. Well, Saturn also pulls the sun's strings with its 29.5 years in which it orbits with the sun. And the sun is the electric center of our solar system. Saturn is Mr. Magnetism. And it's the energy of Saturn that has been harvested by the elites that is causing them to be able to have a negative impact on the Earth and to be able to control the Earth through their agencies, primarily the Vatican. You see, the Vatican is a corporation. That's all it is. It's just a corporation doing business, and their business is banking, fraud, interest-bearing money, Federal Reserve notes, taxation, big pharma. They're in the God business, Mel. You see, the God business is guns, oil, and drugs. So this big corporation, which with its many, many manifold arms, you'll find that oil is in there and arms, as I've mentioned. People trafficking is in there. But everything that is vile and perverse, the elites are running in the black market, underground. They control the white market, so to speak, the public market. That's all rigged. That is all rigged. Everything is rigged. The lot of it. It's all rigged by the elites and their corporations. And their chief or corporation with its CEO, the Pope, and the cardinals, they're just directors of this corporation. They are behind all of the viciousness and the Inquisition, which is still going on today. Now, I've proven this. The Inquisition is still alive and well. And they run it with these agencies. The Vatican is their chief agency. Now, the other things they run that Rome has invented is the economic system, which we call capitalism, a fictional religious system, which is a Judeo-Christian system. Now, the Judeo-Christian concept is neither Jewish nor Christian, because both of those systems come out of Egypt, and Christianity originated in Egypt, and it was very, very different to the Christianity that we're being fed in the churches today. And so you see the calendar, the language, the law, the religion, the economy, the politics, which is basically Christian democracy, call it mob rule, the science, which has been counterfeit money, taxes, false history, big pharma, guns, oil, and drugs. This is Rome today. And what is Rome? Well, it's just a kingdom of ideas. And all these ideas, Mel, are just a house of cards, and they're ready to topple over. With the new consciousness that is coming today, mankind is awakening to many, many things with the internet and all the information that we have. We are suddenly starting to see that things are not the way that the institutions of this world have painted. In fact, we find that when you do your study and your research, you find soon enough that they are exactly the opposite to what they say. The exact opposite.
Absolutely. And when you're referring to the 29.5 day, I can only think of one curious aspect. The lunar and the female menstrual cycle are locked. Can you explain that?
Yes, well, men from menstruation, men is moon, and yes, the feminine cycle of menstruation is locked into the moon. When you study the moon, you'll notice that it goes from new moon to full moon.
Right.
Now we will have a full moon very, very soon. I believe in about 3 or 4 days. Now that corresponds to the womb of the woman. You see, the moon is the womb of the solar system, and the ancients taught this. Plutarch taught it, Socrates and Hermes and Plato, etc. They taught that the moon is fertilized by the sun. The sun's electric sperm is what magnetizes the moon, and the moon is the sphere which souls descend from to incarnate on the earth. So when the moon is full, this corresponds to the eggs in the ovaries, the ovum becoming mature in the womb of the woman. You see, it takes 14 days from when the woman menstruates. It takes 14 days for that egg to mature, just like the moon. The moon menstruates at new moon. You see, you can't see the moon for the better.
Shoup himself boasted, "I have considered everything, and so prepared it, that if the order should this day go to ruin, I shall in a year re-establish it more brilliant than ever." The Illuminati, really, is merely a convenient term to refer to those individuals and secret organizations who continue to pursue the same goals in our time. In actuality, the order's existence began long before the 18th century. The truth is, it began in Babylon, in the 6th century BC, with the advent of the Jewish heresy of the Kabbalah. According to their own accounts, though, the Illuminati represent the descendants of the fallen angels who inhabited the lost continent of Atlantis. These fallen angels interbred with humans, to whom they taught the ancient wisdom. Therefore, throughout the centuries, the Illuminati have been carefully intermarrying with each other to preserve their sacred bloodline, handing on their esoteric knowledge from generation to generation. For this reason, they also refer to themselves as the family. Today, fronted by the powerful banking dynasties of the world, the Illuminati exercise supremacy over the world's governments, as well as their economies, and even their cultures. Ultimately, the Illuminati are an international network, existing in a parallel world, straddled between fronts of legitimacy and activities on the black market and in the underground. Their method of conquest is to wholly demoralize the societies of the world, wrecking their very fabric by promoting every vice, including sexual depravity, greed and war. By enslaving the nations of the world through terrorism and the Illuminati. The culmination of this supposed, therefore, so as to rile the masses of the Western world, deprived of by enslaving. Their method of conquest is to wholly demoralize the societies of the world, wrecking their very fabric by promoting every vice, including sexual depravity, greed and war. By enslaving the nations of the world through colossal debt, they ensure subservience and guarantee the slow transfer of their sovereignty to global government. By encouraging stock market speculation, they siphon off the wealth of the ignorant masses. In the end, by creating a global economic cataclysm of untold magnitude, they intend to demonstrate to humanity their own ineptitude and offer their reign as salvation by implementing a global fascist state to be governed by their expected messiah. Deprived of any moral restraint, they fund their covert activities by dominating the world of illegal arms dealing, narcotics trafficking, and prostitution. Their activities are intertwined with those of the world's leading intelligence services, including the CIA, Mossad, and Britain's MI6, as well as international crime syndicates, like the Mafia and the Asian Triads, and the Yakuza of Japan. Adopting any disguise to suit their collective objectives, they work hand in hand with the Freemasons and numerous other secret societies, and are responsible for the emergence of numerous radical cults, from the Hare Krishnas to the Moonies, of Christian and most importantly, Muslim fundamentalism. By wielding inordinate financial and political power, the plan of the Illuminati is to foment a global war, or World War III, from which will emerge, out of the ashes of the expired civilizations of our time, like a phoenix from the fire, a new world order. The coming confrontation is being presented as a clash of civilizations, between the liberal democratic West and Islamic fundamentalism. Despite all the fear-mongering, however, the Muslims do not pose a threat. The Muslim world has been sufficiently weakened due to their own internal corruption, in addition to the subversive activities the Western powers that, by World War I, the Allied powers were able to brush aside the forces of the Ottoman Empire, which by that time had crumbled to near dust. Since, the Muslim world has been in disarray, incapable of uniting to even represent Islam, let alone defend its cause. This fact was acknowledged by Zbigniew Brzezinski himself, the primary architect of the fabricated threat. As to whether or not such a phenomenon is a menace to the world today, he responded, "Nonsense. It is said that the West had a global policy in regard to Islam. That is stupid. There isn't a global Islam. Look at Islam in a rational manner and without demagoguery or emotion. It is the leading religion of the world with 1.5 billion followers. But what is there in common among Saudi Arabian fundamentalism, moderate Morocco, Pakistan militarism, Egyptian pro-Western or Central Asian secularism? Nothing more than what unites the Christian countries. Therefore, so as to rile the masses of the Western world against Islam, it has been necessary to artificially foment militancy in the Muslim world, by creating terrorist groups.
Jasinski.
Pose a threat to West
Hello, Jasinski.
Christianity as conflicting with the findings of science, and defined the Christian Church as an organization rife with
Can you
corruption
hear me,
and greed.
boo-boo?
While it is certainly true that the Church was fraught with
Can you
abuse,
hear
the
me,
citizens
boo-boo?
of the West were told to throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater. For it was not its
Boo-boo.
moral teachings or the common worshipper that were
Boo-boo,
inherently corrupt, but the upper
boo-boo.
echelons
Can
of
you
its
hear me,
politically minded
boo-boo?
hierarchy.
I'm so
Paradoxically,
fucked up,
the
boo-boo,
secularism
that I
of the
don't know where to
Illuminati
go.
is based not on atheism, but on ancient occult
Boo-boo.
teachings. To the upper levels of the Illuminati, it was Lucifer
Hello,
who liberated
boo-boo.
man, showing him the truth that there is no truth.
Hey,
Rather,
boo-boo.
all morality is mere convention, invented by the
You
dull
ain't
masses.
nothing but a
To them,
boo-boo.
there is only will, and therefore, man
Hey,
triumphs
look
by
at that,
overcoming all
boo-boo.
apprehension, otherwise regarded as morality, that prevents him from achieving what he desires. Or, the ends justify the means. The program of the Illuminati, beginning in the 18th century, has been to disparage all religion as superstition, and the enemy of liberty, that is,
Hello,
the
boo-boo.
freedom do whatever they will. To inculcate the
Ha, ha,
veneration
ha,
of such a
ha.
principle in the minds of the
Now
gullible masses
you
of the West, history has been
taste
rewritten
good.
to present
Ow.
modern secular states as the culmination of centuries of progress towards liberty.
Ah.
Defined as the fundamental characteristic defining the
Ow.
Western superiority over the East, where despotism supposedly perpetually reigns. Throughout Western history, we are taught, from Greece, to the Roman Empire, the Renaissance, and finally the Enlightenment,
you.
European thinkers have been progressively distancing themselves from superstition, or religion.
No,
The
I'm not gonna
culmination of
leave.
this supposed progress were the French and American
just gonna
revolutions,
bite you.
and the implementation of
Chew on you.
secular rule, seen as the triumph of
I'm gonna
liberty.
chew on
In
you.
reality, these revolutions were coups
Ah!
d'états effected through the machinations of the Illuminati. And the first
Hey.
priority of the Illuminati, following the revolutions,
Alright,
as
eating your
propounded
tongue
by its
already.
prominent members,
Ha.
like the Marquis de Condorcet in
Don't
France,
make
Johann
me-
Fichte in Germany,
Ah!
and Thomas Jefferson in America, was the establishment of compulsory
You
education.
make me laugh.
The first to articulate the need to interpret history as the progress of liberty was George Hegel, German professor and member of the
You
Illuminati.
make
Based
me
on Kabbalah,
laugh.
Hegel proposed that history was the unfolding of an idea, as God coming to know himself. To Hegel, it is man who becomes God, as Western civilization overcomes superstition, by progressively advancing towards the implementation of liberty. However, it was not until World War I that Hegel's mythology of Western
You are not
civilization
correct,
was
my
fully
friend.
established, when America, to
You should
justify its
know.
entry into the war, presented itself and
Many
the Allied
people
powers as
know that
not
you
disparate nation-states, but members of a single
wish
Western
to save
civilization,
the world.
known as general
All of
education,
it.
or the Western Civ. Course, the
I hope you
Hegelian
can.
interpretation of history was imposed on
And I
the
say
American
goodnight.
university system, through the influence
Because
of two
you're not saying
Illuminati
anything.
front organizations, boards of
Not
trustees.
even a boo.
The General
Boo,
Board
boo,
of
boo,
Education,
boo,
GEB,
boo.
chartered by the John D. Rockefeller, and the
I'll
Carnegie
stop
Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching,
when you say
CFAT.
I am
As
done.
revealed by William H. McIlhenny,
For the
and the
night.
tax-exempt foundations, from
I
minutes of their
stand.
meetings, these foundations asked themselves the following. Is there any means known to man more effective than war, assuming you wish to alter the life of an entire people? They could not find one, and so helped to precipitate WWI. Following the Great War, however, recognizing the need to maintain the control of the diplomatic machinery of the United States they had achieved, the foundations knew they must control education. Together, as William McIlhenny described, the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations decided the key to it is the teaching of American history and they must change that. So they then approached the most prominent of what we might call American historians at that time with the idea of getting them to alter the manner in which they presented the subject. Through their influence, the entire American educational system was coordinated to serve a centralized command. Control of this system would be two-pronged, dividing study into pure and social sciences. The
Hello.
pure or applied sciences were to serve the emerging military-industrial complex, while the social sciences, like psychology, sociology, and anthropology, were designed to study the behavior of human beings, towards achieving means of controlling or
Hello.
modifying that behavior. Lastly, the remaining fields, like
Dr.
history of
Woodstone,
political science,
are you there?
were to inculcate a proper interpretation of history. Because, according to their directives,
there?
history, properly
Dr.
studied or taught,
Whetstone, are you there?
is constantly reminding the individual of the
Dr.
larger life of the community.
Whetstone.
This common life and the ideals which guide it
Mr.
have been built
Dr.
up through the
Whetstone,
sacrifice of
are you
individuals
there?
in the past. And it is only by
No, you're
such
not, huh?
sacrifices in the present that
You're
this
not
generation
there,
can do its part in
amigo.
the continuing life of the local
What's wrong with
community,
you,
the state,
man?
and the nation. In
I'm so
universities in the
tired here.
capitalist state, Clyde
I'm
W. Barrow
so-
commented that
I need to go
the
home.
full-scale rewriting of history under state supervision not only
I'll be driving
facilitated
home
a short-term justification of American
you later,
participation in the war, but also helped to
I need to go
institutionalize a
home.
much
I
broader
need to
and
go
more
home.
permanent ideological conception of the United States in the social sciences and humanities. The first recommendations to educators, during WWI, were careful to warn them that using
No, I
outright
really need
lies
to
or
get
false information was a mistaken view of patriotic
there,
duty, that was
friend?
likely to be counterproductive in the long
Friend?
run. These recommendations went
you
on
there,
to provide
Mr. Friend?
detailed suggestions on what to teach, and how to teach history properly. They urged teachers to stress the difference between Germany on the one hand, and France, Britain, and the United States on the
I
other,
have to go
as a
now.
conflict originating in the struggle between despotism and democracy. This was a continuation of the same revolutionary struggle for liberty, which America had initiated in the American Revolution. If it had been America's destiny to perfect democracy, it was now America's responsibility to defend democracy wherever it was threatened and bring it to the rest of the world. This myth of America's role in the preservation of democracy and its struggle against despotism is again being resorted to, towards the building